What's up, Max?
I'm just trying to catch up to you. I'm flexing as hard as I can right now. I'm
You
not
need
tan
to.
enough, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely. It's the Bartell Italian jeans, the Jewish Italian jeans from Canarsie, New York. You know they.
Oh, yeah?
Oh yeah. Oh
Where's
yeah.
your family from in Italy?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
My family's from Italy.
Oh really?
My dad's
I think
side,
they're
yeah.
Sicilian.
Calabria. It's like
Okay.
the toe of the boot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I just actually went to Italy for the first time this summer.
Oh, nice.
Venice.
Yeah, I was there too.
It was very claustrophobic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And also, so we did Venice, we did Croatia and Greece, and I've seen enough castles, and I prefer a tropical location.
Yeah,
I don't need
yeah.
to walk 12 miles and see another castle.
Yeah.
My fiance and I agree. We'll do pina coladas on the beach.
There you go.
Moving forward, but it was great to go and check it out for the first time.
Nice.
I also went to Cameron, my fiance, let me know that when we were in Greece and we were staying on one of the islands, all of the dudes were like way more jacked than me. Like all the
there's no
bouncers,
way.
all the bouncers, like all the people, like the guys that were there, like bouncing at bars and stuff, huge.
Wow.
And so she like made sure I knew that they were bigger than me, and I was
I
like,
wonder how they're training. What do you think they're doing? You think they have remote coaches, online coaches?
I think they have online coaches. I think they have online distributors of supplements.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's definitely some
Well,
big dudes over there.
Extra marinara and
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
and
So
pasta.
on the Mediterranean, on their Mediterranean food, they're adding in a little
Right.
bit there. Well, great intro. So today I wanted to talk about turning a coaching passion into a career.
Yeah.
I think a lot of coaches, we've talked about this before. It's like it's a passion project. You love coaching, and you're doing something you hate during your day to day, and you really want to make a career out of this. And it's hard. It's not easy. I think any endeavor that's relatively entrepreneurial is really difficult, harder than most people think it's going to be. And so I want to talk a little bit about your story, and I'll share a little bit about mine of getting into coaching. When did you first become a coach? Like, when was the first time you were paid for coaching? Because you probably coached for free for a long time too.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like probably the first time I started coaching, I went down to Cal Strength when it was like 2008, 2007, and
When I was in 6th and 5th grade, yes.
yeah, and I got started coaching that way, and I was we were paid to coach, but it was like there was no people in the gym. So he started the gym and he was paying everybody's salary, and like it was definitely like if you build it, they will come. And then 2008 financial crisis happened, and no one was doing anything. But it was like you would pick up people, they would kind of come in the gym and you'd coach them, and it was like you have to imagine like having no understanding of how to coach, like barely know how to train yourself, and you're just crushing people. The housewives would come in and you're just like, well, that's what the Bulgarians did. Like, just fucking man up,
20 sets of Bulgarian split squats.
You gotta squat every day and just destroy yourself. And so, yeah, I mean, that was like the beginning of it. But then like kind of after that, I would say like I got into coaching once I got injured. Like I couldn't do the lifts anymore. I couldn't compete. So I was like, I moved into powerlifting, but I was like way more into like, okay, now I'm a coach. I'm focused on taking these athletes to the next level.
Let's actually talk about that for a second, because I went through this too with an injury that took me out of competing.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of coaches that almost use coaching to to finance their lifting career.
Yes.
And again, I also see a lot of coaches who have really good lifts, and they might be popular on social media. They get a lot of clients, but they're not necessarily the best coaches. What's your opinion on that?
I think to your first point, there's a clear delineation between a passion project and a professional coach, right? And it's like and you could be a passion project, you could do that for a long time and be very good, but if that thing just vanished, it would have no impact on your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it would, but like you wouldn't lose your house. Like
Yeah.
you have a day job or whatever, or it's like you said, it's a way to finance your own lifting, right? Where you're just like, I coach because it's like all my friends and I just do it and I love everybody being together and I'm the guy who leads them because I'm the most vocal.
Which is what I did.
Right. And then there's the other side, which is like when you cross that bridge and you become a full-time coach. I think, like you said, your second point though, like people that are maybe not the best coaches or maybe really great coaches but don't have the biggest following or the biggest presence is pretty common. It's like it's sort of the same problem. If you're focused solely on being a coach and you don't have the other side of the business down, and like you're not marketing or promoting or doing any of these things, like it's not that it almost doesn't make any difference, but like it's so hard to grow a business around that because you don't have any sense of like you're only going to pick people up that see you coaching a top level person. And as soon as that person's gone, which they will be one day, and you don't get the next crop of young, good lifters that are going to come up because some other new coach is the you of 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you do, right? So I think those are both like, they're pitfalls. They're short-sighted in that passion project ends at some point when you stop lifting, and that's fine. Maybe you move along, or you never really grow into a business, owner, an actual entrepreneur, and you just kind of like fizzle out because you never really built the systems.
And I would say another observation that I've made that kind of goes along with, I think the best lifters aren't the best coaches. I guess there's two things. One is I find that the best lifters are the lifters that probably were gifted with the best genetic potential to be good at whatever endeavor they're taking on. And then therefore they haven't really had to troubleshoot as hard as, let's say, an average person with average genetics like me and figure out how I can actually squat with knees that don't work.
I was just going to make that point is I think that someone like you who wasn't super gifted in squatting, right, probably knows more about how to get somebody better in the squat than someone who's like myself, where it's like you just come into it and it's natural and easy, right?
It's probably opposite for me on bench press.
Right. Yeah. Where it's like you just kind of like,
bencher.
oh, well, this always kind of works. Like I don't really know to troubleshoot. And I mean, we're way beyond that point.
Yeah.
That's like early on.
Yeah.
But I do think there's like to be said, there's a lot of people that are like, you're really good lifting. Maybe you get a following and you kind of create like a pseudo brand.
Yeah.
It's not a brand, but it's like people know you, so you have a following.
Cult-like following, yeah.
Yeah, and you just monetize it by like, I'm coaching, or I have a little fitness app, or whatever it is, or templates or programs, and that's like the extent of it, right?
Yeah, and it's funny too. I've seen so many like Instagram famous lifters open gyms and then close them 2 or 3 years later when their lease ends.
So many times,
Because again, it's the same thing with the passion project. Is like they have, let's say, the money and they believe that they have the following. The thing is, I think what people forget is their following is like national and international. It's not localized to your immediate area where people are going to join your gym.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy as you'd think, and then therefore you close it down because you could probably make more money not doing the gym thing. So if you are Instagram famous, don't open a gym.
Don't do the gym.
Just monetize your apparel, online coaching, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But back to sort of the backstory of becoming a coach. When did you go off on your own?
I mean, 2012 I opened a gym. 2013 I opened a gym and basically started coaching people full time. I was driving around the Bay Area. I was driving like kind of like what you've talked about, like every Saturday's a meet and you're coaching there, then you're driving. I was going like 4 or 5 different gyms each night of the week. I'd have one gym or 2 gyms I'd go to. So I was just traveling to where they were. I opened the space up and it brought everybody one spot, and that made it a little better.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was just everything was like off the cuff.
Yeah, I mean, and when it came to going on your own with coaching, like, did you already have a roster of clients to finance that? Did you have to just take in a bunch of money? Like, what'd you do?
No, I had people coming in. I had enough athletes that I was working with that, that I took on and I was coaching with them.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah. Because the other thing that I think that a lot of people think that there's this crazy, we've talked about there being a low barrier to entry to coaching. People think there's a high barrier to entry to opening a gym.
Yeah.
And like when I talk to people about my story, they realize, like my general manager and I were talking about this recently. He's like, it's a lot easier than I thought it would be, but he's like, it's harder to then get to the scale that we've gotten to.
Yeah.
Because when I started the gym, I had $5,000 in my bank account, probably from you because you paid me.
Yeah.
And I bought gym equipment from Chad. He gave me a payment plan with no interest, so that was like super kind. And I found a space that would sublease me space on a revenue share. I gave them 60% of my revenue, which, so again, zero risk, really zero overhead other than what I made.
That's so smart.
And then I renegotiated that after 6 months because I started making money. It didn't make sense anymore because I was paying more than what the lease would be. But there's ways to do it where you can bootstrap it. You can figure out, how to do it with less money. Now, again, getting into sort of the gym business side, again, that's harder than probably having like an online coaching business. There is risk, cost of overhead. There is more risk. But for me personally, I was 20 years old when I opened the gym. I leveraged the gym to give me like validation as a coach, sort of social proof in a sense. So rather than being just this 20-year-old on Instagram being like, I think I know everything, I'm going to coach you, which I definitely thought I knew everything. It was, they would come to my gym, I'd tell them I think I know everything, and they'd be like, well, he's got something going on here because he's got stuff. So yeah, if you're starting out, and I do think a gym could be a good platform to leverage your coaching. Again, I like to say that my gym is a coaching business with a gym.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I do think getting into the online coaching space where it is easier. But back then, there wasn't online coaching when you were doing it. You had to have a gym, right?
Yeah, and it's also like it was just like this thought of like you can't coach remotely. That doesn't work. Yeah. And when I was at Juggernaut, like every national champion American record holder I have was remote.
Yeah.
So like it clearly worked at that point.
And you would see them once every 6 months on a training camp?
Even, or at meets only. Like it was not as common as like, you weren't getting a lot there. A different time too, though. I mean, one thing to sort of get to your point of like the barrier to entry is so low. It's funny because when you look at businesses that are mature, that are fully grown, it seems like daunting. Like if I was to walk into SoCal Powerlifting and be like, hey, like this is a gym, you're going to start this. You wouldn't think it started at 3 locations ago.
And fit 1,600 square feet.
Yeah, tiny. You're subletting from someone. You have all these fantastic opportunities. And those opportunities exist because of who you are. Like people saw you had potential and were willing to be like, this guy's the guy that's going to do something. So like there's a lot that goes into that little bit. Like to get to where you're at now is like a huge amount of little hurdles you crossed. Yeah. But the barrier to entry to like I can rent a space and get stuck on a lease and then buy 1 barbell and a squat rack and have a gym.
Yeah.
That's feasible. That's not necessarily the best route, but like it's not hard to get into.
Yeah, and I don't think I've never been one to take on a bunch of debt, let's say, to do, any sort of startup venture. I think when it comes to business, I like starting small and growing from there. Yeah. I think I've seen a lot of really nice gyms come and go because they start with, they put in $500,000, let's say, into some sort of crazy build out, and it looks really nice. But, the minute another shop pops up, if you're selling just gym memberships, they're just going to go. If you're just selling a gym membership, people are going to go to wherever the best gym is, whatever's closest to them, more convenient, and whatever, has the nicest stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, after 3 to 5 years, your stuff isn't so nice anymore.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. That happened in the Bay Area. I mean, I've seen gyms that were like decked out, full Eleiko build.
Is that Science Strength Gym still around? Like
they're still around, yeah, but like. They I think they had a bunch of money at the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
They inherited a bunch of money, and then they just built this giant gym. And it's like, it's a passion project. Yeah. And it's like, it's a giant passion project, but it's like ultimately, maybe it's profitable, I don't know, but like, it's such an unlikely scenario, right? Coming in with that much money. How much revenue does a company like that make for the amount of money that went in over 5, 6, 7 years, right? Yeah. It might be very different if it was anywhere else.
Yeah, Max and I's advice, if you inherit a bunch of money,
just invest it.
Just invest it. Buy Apple, buy Meta. Yeah. We're not financial advisors, by the way, but you do
not financial advice. But.
Yeah, do that instead of opening a gym and just be an online coach. Probably. Yeah. Again, I have no regrets for any of my clients listening to this or any of my staff. I love what I do. I love SoCal Powerlifting. I would not be where I am today without it. In fact, it's gone bigger than I ever could have imagined. I have notes. I set like 3, 5, and 10-year goals when I was like 20 when I opened the gym, and my 5-year plan was travel the world and do seminars, coach 60 clients that were all like doing nationals and, all that stuff. I never imagined it would be an enterprise where like I have full-time coaches and have benefits and all this stuff. And so that's possible. But again, I think my situation is, you don't really hear about that often.
Yeah. I think it's hard to convey to people how much like entrepreneurship is about like doing basic things really well over and over and over again. It's like, all the flashiness and the excitement, like it's not about money. It's about like, are you getting on a call? Like you just had some call today. You were talking about like, some inter-business stuff where 2 people are kind of not fighting, but like there's a little a little squabble, and you gotta deal with that, right? But it's like the little things, like you don't think about like, oh, okay, I got to go to Costco every week to get toilet paper and this stuff. I got to go and, make sure everything's stocked. I got to track what people are buying. Are people taking drinks out of the fridge without paying?
We had that.
It's like all that stuff, right? It's all little things you don't think about, and like they stack up a lot. And so like, it's not just, oh, we have an awesome gym with cool lighting and all the Instagram people are going to come. And then because they're here, everyone else is going to come. And then you find out that like all those gyms just crumble because they're not built on a foundation of core business principles.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to touch on too is like when you're becoming a coach, I think injury took us out of sport. But let's say you're a lifter where maybe injury hasn't taken you out of sport, and you're a good lifter that wants to make this a career. There will come a time where you have to make a choice. Yeah. And you have to choose whether you want to continue to push your training and be the best, or you want to be the best coach. And I think they are mutually exclusive. I don't think you can do both at the same time.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Because if you want to really take that to a next level, it just requires so much energy, so much
sacrifice.
time. Yeah, and with anything you do, if you focus on just one thing, you'll do well with that. If you put all of your resources into it, you might succeed. Yeah. If you split it between 2 or 3 things,
you're gonna be average at best.
Yeah, if not, lose all 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I reflect. I'm a business coach, Jared Richmond, who you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know his accolades as well as you. I mean, he was pretty good, right?
He's a very good lifter.
Very good lifter. I've seen him scale his gym, let's say 7 to 8x in the last 2 years, and I've seen his training suffer because of it. Because he made a choice. He's like, I need to make this work because I want to have a family. I want to provide, and he has to make sacrifice. Now, though, it's at a place where it's doing well. He's managing people. He's coaching less. He was coaching like 50 hours a week in the gym, and now he's coaching maybe 10 hours because he switched to more of a group model instead of one-on-one for himself. And now he's like, I think I'm going to start pushing my training again. Nice. So it's possible to get it back, but there's probably a period of, let's say, 1 to 5-ish years that you have to sacrifice and go. In 1 to 5-ish years, if you do well and really grind, that you can maybe get back to a place where you can be good or great again. However, that might mean missing those peak years, in your mid to late 20s where you could be excellent at the sport.
Yeah. I remember when I told him to contact you.
Oh, really?
I saw him at the Arnold, and he walked out to me, looked like a raccoon. His eyes were like black, like bags under his eyes. He was just wrecked, and I was like, what's going on, dude? And because I'd coached him a little bit, and I was like, how you doing? He was just like, everything was, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you have any advice? And I was like, yeah, you should contact my friend. Like, he's gonna, and when you told me the other day about how he's doing, I was just like so happy. I was like, that's awesome. Because he was just, like a lot of people, like in any of these things, remote coaching, gym business, like it can be brutal if you let it control you.
Yeah.
You're just trapped behind this like fear or scarcity or whatever it is of like, if I don't get this next client, if I don't do this, like I'm just dying. And then all your resources go to like holding on what you have. Yeah. You can't build the rest of it out. And
you're in a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. You're trapped.
And I want to get into some of the mistakes we made, but I'll just start off with saying like, I've had, some tough years. And I think when you're in those tough years or moments or waves, whatever you're in, it's really hard to stay abundant.
Yeah.
And have that abundance mentality of, let's say, money flows to me, clients flow to me. Like, I know what I'm doing and this will be successful. When things are tough, like it's really easy to be negative, and to stave off those negative emotions is it takes skill and like learning and reframing. Some philosophical shit, maybe a little Naval Ravikant, in your life. But it's hard, and all that stuff can diminish your opportunity. When you're in a place of scarcity, you're not able to identify opportunity. You're tunnel visioned. You're tunnel visioned on the thing. You can't extend your vision. You're just focused on the one thing. Like I was listening to a recent Andrew Huberman podcast, and he had, I think it's Adam Watskin on, who was a chess champion, and he's accomplished a lot of things, but he was talking about the best chess players don't actually take in the whole board. They take in the direction that matters.
Right.
And so again, when you're in the abundance mentality and you know where to look, like you can take advantage of the opportunities that matter. But when you're tunnel visioned on the bad thing that's going on and you think things are falling apart, there's no way you can actually seek out or notice any opportunities that are coming your way. The best entrepreneurs are flying at 35,000 feet altitude where they have a bird's eye view of the operation. And if we're talking about growing a coaching career and the point where maybe you even want to grow a coaching team or business or own a gym, if you're in the weeds doing all the coaching 50, 60 hours a week to make ends meet, which is common, more common than we'd think, you're not able to actually figure out like what needs to be solved in the business. You're just dealing with these crazy day-to-day and you can't stay abundant.
I would say to be on the sort of track of mistakes, like one of the biggest mistakes I made, even, get into that place sometimes as well, is like when you focus on the things you can't control. And like that's probably the biggest error you could make in anything, is like you're just fixated on something you have no control of, right? Like, oh, my taxes are high, or like I owe this much money in taxes or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's just like, you got to pay that, and like you can do something about it next time, or whatever, like people quit because of X, Y, and Z reason that you have no control over. They're moving or whatever it is. Like there's just things you can't do. So you have to stop focusing on the negative stuff you have no control of. Because it's just a waste of time and energy.
And taking ownership of the stuff you do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, again, as people, we don't want to maybe work on the stuff we don't like. We go towards the stuff we're good at. Same with sport. I mean, I look at lifting. The reason I got into lifting was bench press was the only good thing I did. The only thing I was good at athletically ever the first time in my life. I remember my friends were training for freshman football. I was a year younger than them because I got held back in kindergarten. Nice. That's another story for another time. How do you get held back in kindergarten? You're just crazy, rambunctious, ADHD. Nice. So I repeated kindergarten, but I kept in touch with friends that were older. And so when I was in 8th grade, going into 8th grade, they were going into 9th grade, and we were bench pressing in my friend Ethan's house. And I outbenched all of them. I was still pudgy and untrained. And it was the first time I was good at something that was, athletic based. And then I just gravitated towards the weight room. And so the same goes in every facet of life. We just gravitate towards the things we're good at.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times what I see with coaches and in fitness entrepreneur careers, it's, they don't want to track. Oh, I don't want to track my numbers. I'm not a numbers guy. Oh, I don't know my numbers or I don't know how to do QuickBooks. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a QuickBooks guy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Work harder.
It's so true.
And so that goes with business. It's like you do have to focus on the things you're bad at, which is hard, and that's trained behavior. So speaking about some of the mistakes, like what are a couple of mistakes that you've made in your coaching career, maybe relating to building a coaching roster or business?
I mean, for coaching, I mean, it was like one, just not thinking about building systems out, like not really doing something like actually probably a big one was like the prioritization of the job. I think a lot of people get into the coaching and they do it as a side thing, and they put it like low on the totem pole. Yeah. If you want to do really good job of coaching, you have to make it a priority. Like every day I have time allotted in the morning, the afternoon, whatever. I show up, I sit down, all I'm focused on is feedback and programming and these things, and making that like a full time, like this time is occupied by that because it takes that precedence. Versus going in and like, yeah, the program's great. I wrote a template. It will just hand it off and it should be fine after that. And you end up in a place where it's like you're just getting poor results, right?
You mentioned something that I think is really, really important. I would say overarching, that's time management.
Yeah.
And when it comes to one of the mistakes that I used to make and that I see a lot of coaches make is lack of time management. They treat training clients with the utmost priority, as it should.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to build your own coaching roster and business, you're wearing every hat in the business. So your coach, your marketer, if you have a gym, your janitor, your customer service rep. So there needs to be time allotted to these things or they slip through the cracks. So like one of the biggest mistakes I see coaches make is like, let's use social media marketing for an example. They'll coach all day, and they'll be like, shoot, I need to make a post. And then at 8 p.m., when they just get home, they try to scrap together a crappy post and they post it. It needs to be batched. It needs to be planned ahead. You need to treat every segment of the business with the same importance that you treat training clients.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything supports that, right?
Yeah.
If you can't get another client, you're going to get into this, if you can't do it, just randomly happens. Yeah. You're going to get into a place where you're always thinking like this negativity of like, well, what happens if I lose this person? Mm-hmm. So you just keep reprioritizing one thing that's already being done well. Like you can't do a better job of coaching. You're already doing that. But if you don't have a system built out to get the next client, you're going to be trapped in this place of like, I have to focus on this because if I don't do a good job, they're going to leave. And then I'm going to lose this much money. And then I'm going to be, short on this bill or whatever. Yeah. So you're trapped in that place. Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the big thing about that is like the other side of that coin is I made mistakes a long time in the very beginning was I didn't do enough to build a structure in the business. Like I didn't sit there and say, what are the jobs that exist in this business? Yeah. Like there's a sales, there's a, marketing, there's bookkeeping, there's all this stuff. I didn't define what those were and how those roles were and then assign, I might do all of them, but if I didn't define what the job was, what needed to be done weekly on that job, I never, it just was a huge mistake.
Yeah. You can't, how do you offload a task if you don't have an SOP or standard operating procedure for the set task?
Yeah.
If it's all in your head,
yeah.
you can't replicate that. And that's a huge bottleneck for growing. And then you have to spend time training someone on that thing. One of the things that we now leverage ChatGPT for a lot is building SOPs.
That's so good.
I have my team brain dump every task that they do. If we start doing something new, let's say, it's brain dump it in a doc, paste it into GPT, have GPT create an SOP, and now we have an SOPs folder.
Yeah.
However, the other day I was like, team, where are we putting all these SOPs? And we're all just laughing like, and we put them all in folders.
Yeah.
So if you make them and don't organize them, then it's moot and it's a waste of time.
Right.
So organize it. But there's companies out there, if you're listening to this and you have a huge team, there's actually a company called like Trainual, business owner in Arizona, huge company, that they literally only do SOPs and onboarding now for like new employees for huge companies and stuff. Like
brilliant.
It's great. It's AI integrated, whatever. But shout out Trainual. Maybe they'll sponsor the podcast. I'll text Chris Runzio, the owner.
Do it. Yeah.
But ultimately, SOPs, systems and processes, the boring stuff works. Like it sucks, but the boring stuff works. And when I'm coaching a fitness coach or coach in any endeavor, it's like first thing we look at is like the processes, refining process, and then making sure that things can be built to scale. Again, we go into, I think it's important to do the stuff that's not scalable. So like when I first started coaching, clients would, text me their videos. I would wake up in the morning. My East Coast clients have already sent me 20 videos. I mean, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to a platform that can help you, hopefully, which Coach Logic does that. But ultimately, it's building out that set procedure and set schedule for success.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, it's so easy to get to that point of just being like, I'm not this guy or I'm not that guy, and just leaning on that and then blaming everything about something else. Like, oh, I don't make content, I don't do this. Like they're hard. Like even people that have done a lot of it, like I've made a lot of content, like it's still something that's not like, oh, I'm super excited to jump on in front of the camera and say something unnatural and whatever. But like you just have to get yourself to a point where it's like, this is important. Like this has to be done. You have to put yourself in a place that like, this is the job, this is what I'm doing, right? And then that's something to think about too if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? If you're going to go down the road of like running your own coaching business, like a lot of it entails all these other little things.
Yeah. I heard a quote one time that really resonated with me. It was 99% of your work won't matter, but it'll lead you to the 1% that does.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had an idea like 2 or 3 years ago before quiz-based like onboarding or lead grabs were a thing. I noticed Invisalign had a quiz where you would take the quiz and it would tell you what kind of Invisalign you needed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, why can't we do that for powerlifting? Take a quiz and it tells you, oh, you're a good fit or bad fit. We did that, and overnight I quadrupled my lead volume weekly.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many things I did or tried before that I spent hours upon hours working on that didn't work. And I just had to get used to the fact that 99% of the things I do will be meaningless. I will work thousands of hours that lead to absolutely nothing. But that 5 to 10 hours I worked on maybe one thing will make all the difference. Yeah. And so, if you're listening to this and you want to be a coach and start a coaching career, you have to get used to failing and throwing things at the wall sometimes and like seeing what sticks.
But I think it's important to do that as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Like you want to fail a lot more. Like you want to, it's like anything, you build a product, right? Yeah. You build software, like it's gonna suck. Yeah. And it's gonna be like, you could put an enormous amount of effort and time into it and you give it to somebody and they're like, oh, it doesn't do this thing. And you just feel like, fuck, like we just ground ourselves to pieces and like you're missing one feature that you kind of like glossed over. But it's also the best thing because imagine if you were to start something and for free, everybody's like, well, I'd buy it if it did this. Yeah. And you have the power to build that. You suddenly realize like, oh, I just want to push this thing out. There's a sort of famous thing with software, which is if you release something that you're proud of, you released way too late. It should be so early that like you're almost ashamed of how crappy it is because you want the feedback loop to be as fast as possible. And you want to not waste time building features or things that no one cares about when in reality they want this other thing that you weren't even thinking about. So you want garbage. You want the crappiest beta version to go so you can get the feedback to build the exact thing people really need.
What the customer wants, not just what you think they want.
Right. And that's with most businesses, right? It's a little different because software has a really fast and pace of innovation. But like with coaching too, with any of these things, it's like you want to try a lot of stuff and be really ready to like fail at it so you can get a better answer.
That reminds me of the book Ready, Fire, Aim. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah,
it's all about this concept. And I think a lot of people get hung up on this idea of perfection.
Yes.
Like they need their product, their service to be perfect before they launch. I'll tell you right now, no product or service that you do or provide will ever be perfect. In fact, if you think it's perfect, that's when you start falling backwards and you get complacent. I always say, like, SoCal Powerlifting, we're always like 80% there, because the goalposts shift, and that's a good thing. You know, it's important, I think, to celebrate the wins and the progress made, but ultimately, you should always be shooting for better. And if you're not, that's when you fall behind.
One of my favorite sort of idioms, you know, I don't know if it was Elon Musk that said it, but like this idea of like, you're always assume you're wrong. You're just trying to be less wrong. And when you take that approach, you never feel bad about the decisions you make. Because if you believe everything you did was right and we made the right choice and it didn't work, then you're like, oh, that was wrong. I need to do something else. Instead of saying like, oh, we're wrong about everything. Everything in the product we've built so far, software-wise, is wrong. It's just how wrong is it? And what's the next version of less wrong?
I think that was Elon. I read his book, and that seemed like they were always trying to pinpoint what's wrong with everything.
Right. And so like if you take that approach, your whole perspective on iteration and improvement is not a negative thing. It's positive because you're moving away from I'm less wrong than I was. I used to do this. Now we're wrong here still, but we don't know where the next, you know, version of this is that's less wrong.
Yeah. One of the things that we recently started doing at SoCal was we host monthly town hall calls.
Yeah.
And we had our first one, I think, in January. And in there, I created, you know, a place where people could really talk about what they wanted to see in the gym and answer, you know, I would answer their questions. And at first, I was a little hesitant to open myself up to criticism, especially in a public setting. It's one thing to have a one-on-one meeting with someone, you can kind of keep it contained. It's another thing to have it public and then have to, on the fly, sort of answer it and own it. But in that meeting, I got off that call being like, almost like kicking myself for not doing it earlier.
Yeah.
Because there were so many things that honestly weren't even hard to do that like clients have been craving that would increase their, you know, enjoyment and client experience almost immediately. And we were able to hit pretty much 99% of them like fast.
Nice.
And so the key here is if you're trying to build your coaching business, rather than doing what you think the customer wants, ask your clients what they want. Do it in a public setting, have weekly town halls, whatever it is. Create sort of that feedback loop where you can constantly be providing the things that they want. Now, there'll be things that you can't do. I'll give you an example. One of our clients was like, they saw a gym where every member had their records up on the wall. Well, when you have 400 plus clients, my wall would be covered in
big wall.
records. You need a big wall.
Yeah.
So that wasn't possible. But, you know, we were able to do record boards. We have a record board, and then we are looking at creating some sort of piece, like a sheet where clients can track, like a Google sheet where they can track their PRs, where that's accessible and publicized in some way. Like there's ways you can do things that maybe it's not exactly what they dreamt of or thought of, but you can do something adjacent to that solves the problem.
Yeah. Well, what if we built like a community, and inside the community, we could put notifications when somebody makes a PR. So like someone makes a PR in the app and then it notifies the community, hey, so-and-so made a PR yesterday or today, whatever it is, right?
That's huge.
Like I just think about that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, it's like problem solving in that case, but also like to get back to the point of the criticism, it's like the biggest mistake I made, or a huge mistake I made, was like being exactly where you were, is being insecure about the criticism you're going to get, because you feel like I've built this reputation, I've built this stuff, and if I don't know the answer, or if I'm wrong about stuff, Pete's going to look bad at me. You know, people are going to look at me like, oh, he's an idiot. And the reality is it's the other way around. People will see you as genuine when you can say, yeah, you know, we built it and it's not great. What do you think we should do? Then they're going to feel like they're part of it.
Yes.
And they are part of it.
They buy in.
Yeah. And then, it's so tough to get there though, right? It's really hard to get there, especially if you're building yourself up as a coach who's an expert, who knows all this stuff, to ask your people, hey, what do you think I could do better? Or what do you think we're doing wrong?
So with the Coach Logic platform, you guys plan on having a place where the PRs are tracked and celebrated?
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, this is the thing to me about the product, and the thing I love about software is that we can conceive of an idea like right now and storyboard it and then build it pretty quickly as a initial, you know, feature and try. And like, I want to get to the point where it's like we're trying, the goal is to be trying 1 to 2 experiments a week, which would be like, let's put a feature like this in, let's build this, let's try that. Because we want to get people what they want. Something like that to me is like, when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's a great way to do that, because a record board is too hard.
Yeah.
Leaderboards are fine, but like, I like the idea of like, why don't we deliver the thing that people want, which is like to share everyone's progress.
Yeah.
So maybe we try something like that.
Yeah. So like one of the things that we do, we have a weekly coaching, what's called a level 10 meeting, where we go over a bunch of stuff. But one of the things now that we do is we highlight every client's PRs from the week.
Nice.
So all the other coaches know who PR, they can celebrate them. And then we want marketing will then go into that client's profile on their platform and then pull that video and post it to Instagram. My question for you though is like, if I'm listening to this and I don't know you, I don't know me, I don't know anything about the platform, all this sounds really great. And it sounds like you're going to deliver on all these dreams. Why has not any other platform done this that has had a bunch of money behind it? Like why is this not already being done?
I think it's an ROI thing. I think you get into it. A lot of the platforms that exist now are built by a tech guy and VCs or a tech guy with some money, right? So they come in, they build it, and they look at it from the perspective wholly from the perspective of let's build a very bare bones thing that does what the broadest market is going to do, and then we just iterate from there. And you end up with a lot of the apps that exist, they look almost identical. There's not a single app that I can think of that has like a really good integrated like video like feedback and markup tool.
It's all clunky.
Yeah, there's no apps that really do a great job of like long-term planning, right? So like all these things are specific to barbell sports and to this sort of space. And so they don't come from the perspective of like, I'm solving the problem of a small market.
True. They don't want to solve a small market problem.
Right. And this is like a problem with VCs. Like VCs come in looking for a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So they don't care about the small thing. So we build for the group that we're addressing, and as time goes on, if we can expand, we expand. But like the goal is like let's deliver the product that's really valuable to the people that want it.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. Yeah. Again, it's like I said on another episode, it was like it's built for coaches by coaches, cliche, but like it's true. I mean, ultimately, we're going to listen to the feedback, especially if you're trying this now and you're in the beta. Again, we have a Discord to get feedback from every coach that is on the platform. You tell us what you want built and like we can build it.
Yeah.
And we will, because what you probably want is probably what all the other coaches want too. I haven't seen anything, been asked for that another coach doesn't also want.
Yeah. And, it's also like a lot of stuff you don't realize. Like you don't know until like just talking to you, right, during these podcasts. Like you'll hear something like, oh, that's a great idea. Why isn't that just integrated right now? Yeah. Like we should be thinking about like, I'm always thinking about how can we improve something? How can we get away from a process that's slow or bad or whatever it is? It's even to the point where you're like, you use the product and like, man, there's a lot of clicking going on. I need to cut this in half. Yeah. How do I get rid of each one of these? If you take that approach, that's like, how do I eliminate, this is like a thing in manufacturing. It's like, how do you eliminate weight from a product? Because every gram you take off of a product is more efficiency in the product, right? Yeah. It's less cost. It's
a step in the manufacturing process.
Step in the manufacturing, every little thing. It's like, it seems silly to be like, well, it's only 1 gram off a tiny little thing, or it's only 1 screw removed from the process. That is dramatic over the course of lots of things.
Yeah, you have a million iterations, all of a sudden it's a million grams. Yeah.
If you're coaching 40 people, if you're coaching 2 people, you don't notice it when you're using a spreadsheet. If you're coaching 40, which is enough to make a good living, you're coaching 40 people, like, if you have to download a video every time you want to do an annotation, that is brutal. And you're going to stop doing it or deliver a worse product.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to close with a couple things. I mean, what would be like 1 or 2 big points of advice that you would give a coach who is that person who they want to turn this into a career? Maybe they're coaching 5, 10, maybe 15 clients. They're working maybe a full-time job right now, or they're just making it work on with the clients that they have. Like, what advice would you give them so that they could coach full time and do what they love to do?
I would say 2 things. One is pick exactly what you want it to be, like down the road, 5 years. Think about from the perspective of like, I want to be an XYZ coach. Don't let yourself get distracted by all kinds of little things. You're not an apparel salesman. You're not selling supplements. You're not doing seminars and all these other things. Like, pick one thing. If you're gonna be a remote coach, online coach, like that's the thing, and drill down on that. And then the second is find people that are like-minded, like a team, or get a mentor, right? Like business coach, whatever it is, that's going to be the thing. Those 2 things will accelerate everything faster.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say like focus on the meat and potatoes. You know, a lot of times, and I've done this where like I'll get distracted by trying to introduce new revenue verticals. Like, I'll give you an example. We tried to do a physical therapy program that did something and died. Nutrition did something, died. Apparel doesn't make any money, but it's kind of a marketing, expense, like whatever. we've tried to do things like that, but it's then made the coaching product worse.
Yeah.
Because you're focusing so much time on it.
Yeah.
And you know, when it comes to adding verticals to like other offerings, you calculate maybe what you spent monetarily on it, but what if you also calculate the amount of time you wasted trying to do it?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, based on what your hourly rate is personally that you give yourself, that's a lot of money and time wasted. Yeah, and if you're listening to this, I kind of will echo what Max just said. You're building a business. Arm yourself with knowledge and skills. You know, compared to when I started coaching, you know, I'd say a little over a decade ago, there's so many more free resources out there now.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube and so much cool stuff coming out that you can really learn. Now, there's almost too much to the point where you don't even know who to listen to. And what this guy says that guy over there says the wrong thing, but then, you know, they just go back and forth. So try and pick a few people that you listen to and like, and take action. Don't just try and like create the best plan in your notebook with inaction. Just go and do and try.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter, you know, take an onboarding call with a client. And if you fail on your face, like no one freaking cares and no one will know.
Yeah.
And so just do the reps like so many times where you just perfect the process. So go and do and get feedback from your clients so that you can improve your process and be a better coach.
100%.